Okay, so today we're here with Jeremy Moser. He runs a content marketing agency that does around 4 to 5 million a year. Today we're going to be breaking down the business in terms of what can be automated, what can't, and we have completely different viewpoints on this stuff. So we're going to be going through what can and what can't, and I've told him challenge me on this shit because I'm sure, as like many other people, they think a lot of this is fluff. So if we can start, Jeremy, if you could give us a 3,000 foot overview of the business, the key departments, and what are the things that you and your team might be doing that are repetitive, recurring shit that you think AI could handle?
Yeah, great question. So basically we're an Instagram marketing and consulting agency. So there's basically two arms to the business. On the one arm, we are a done-for-you agency service. So essentially we help coaches, consultants basically grow their personal brand on Instagram, generate leads through specific content marketing, and then obviously turn those into sales to scale up their info and coaching business. Yeah. We have that on the done-for-you side. And then on the consulting side, we basically have like a licensing offer where we just plug and play our Instagram systems into someone else's business and then just kind of consult and advise them on how to properly like implement that front. Now, on the done-for-you side, if you want me to just go and break down the structure, we essentially have 4 to 5 account managers. They each manage like a number of clients, right? And then that they're more responsible for actually the delivery in terms of creating content and whatnot. Then we have one media buyer who does what we call theme page marketing. So she's like sort of the media buyer on that front. We have one operations manager, one COO, one video editor, and then we have one person who is the head of setting, which is basically like just managing client DM setting teams.
Cool. Okay. And then the client DM setting teams, to be more specific, because we actually work with you on this and you've done an awesome job. He basically just coaches the DM setters that are for the businesses, right? So he runs coaching calls and things like that. Cool. Okay. And then on the DIY side, the key differences between the two is just here, they get everything that you do on this side, just broken down into video format, and they get coaching calls.
Exactly. And then on there, the one thing we do have is like, I have an EA, if you wanna add that in. Yeah. But basically on the DIY side, or like, you know, the consultancy side, we basically have obviously myself, we were deliberating on a CSM, but that's obviously one of the things I'll be curious about today. Yeah. And then just the EA sort of like sales rep that are helping on that front.
Yeah. I actually think as well, completely adjacent to this, because obviously we have a very similar model. There might be things we could also discuss on like the CSM front and like one-on-one stuff too. So like the way I see it is with AI, there's going to be a lot of things that can benefit both individually, but talk to me about if we just break this down into, you've got the marketing, you've got the sales, and then you've got the fulfillment. On the marketing side, you have a really good name in the space. So is majority of this organic? Are you planning to run any paid?
Yeah, literally on the organic, we spend $0 on paid ads. Yep. So like, and if so, it's going to be myself or my business partner who are going to be running it. So marketing, we literally have the only cost that we have or that I have right now is like a video editor on the personal side and then a YouTube agency. That obviously is something that's in it right now, but yeah, that's beside it on the marketing side.
Yeah, I think like, and we'll get into this as well. I think the way that I see, because we have a content agency we work with as well. I think you've spoke to him, his name's Michael. And I've made it very clear to him, like, look, as long as there's ideation that needs to be done, there's editing that needs to be done, there's data that needs to be looked at, you're alive for now, but like there is going to be key things that are eventually going to be removed. Editing is one of the most difficult things to automate right now. But for example, the good thing about your brand as well is the things that you do, you can also give to your clients, which is the great thing. And you have many different reference points. Like for us, one thing that Alessandro built for us internally is, and we were discussing this in Telegram, I believe, is a bot that has ideation, scripting, and iteration. So it's like a 3-way bot that can help us internally, and for you, it can also help externally with clients. Yep. And you could even do a build out for them in the done for you that could be an upsell. Or in the coaching program, it could be a template that they can plug in and play. So like the way this works for us internally is we have the ideation bot, and then we have that talks to the scripting bot, and then the iteration bot. So do you want to explain how the ideation bot actually works in this piece?
Yeah, so the ideation bot, let's say you can do it multiple ways, or you can just feed it different channels that you would want it to review. It can also review like hashtags, or you can just get the client or yourself to fill in a form, and based on what you filled in the form, then it will go ahead and do a web search or do a search on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram to find more different ideas on how to create the content.
What's the setup on this in terms of when you do ideation, right? We have like very specific ways in terms of the topics we look for, the angles we look for, like how does that work that it takes it into sort of account? The one stuff we've played around with, it just absolutely spazzes out of control. Yeah, and then as a result of it gives you like donkey ideas, which like we don't want those, you know?
Sure. Like you probably have frameworks, SOPs, documents that outline that. So it's all about training the AI on and explaining the AI, what are you giving as information, how to use it and how not to use it. And then depending on how much information you give it, for example, we have Cam's AI, which is trained on like 3,000 different PDFs obviously you don't just put all of those PDFs in Claude and then tell it, okay, now use all of this and analyze my business or create content, because it's just going to get confused on what to use. There's actually a proper system, like it's called a hybrid RAG database that you would need with embeddings and re-ranking of the searches that it gets. But yeah, depending on how much information you have, you would train the AI, and then the AI would use that to go ahead and then do the searches. You can use, like, for example, a tool that's called Appify that has many different API points to use on X, to use on Instagram, to use on YouTube, etc. So that's how I would do the ideation part.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for example, there was a video that I just posted that went semi-viral. It was a top of funnel piece of content. And it was me talking about how there was the first $1 billion company that was like a telemedicine drop shipping company that were using fake AI doctors. And the only way that I knew about that news was from the agent notifying me that it's going viral and it's an outlier on Twitter. So I could immediately see that. And instead of being a degen scrolling on Instagram, which is what I was doing, like I would scroll like 30 minutes a day, which I think is beneficial to get a gauge at what's working and what's not. But that saved me the time and just filtered through and gave me the outlier.
So would you almost go and say, as an example, let's say, obviously you run an AI agency, right?
Yeah.
If you go and say, hey, if I have a client that does AI agencies, and I go and say, hey, proven, these are sort of the categories that we're looking for within the categories. Here are like a bunch of examples. From there, the bot will be like the ideation bot will basically like scroll the internet.
Yeah.
And basically like once it finds something, it flags it immediately to you.
Yeah, you can do that, or you can also just look at, like, let's say you want to follow a specific person, you know that he posts content that does go viral. It would take the average amount of like engagement on its posts. And then once one post it becomes an outlier, depending on the average of how much he posts, like let's say this post gets 3.4x times more comments, likes, shares, then from there it would send you a notification with what he posted, probably why did it go viral. And then you could also get the AI to also, how could you use that so it would optimize the script or the copy
Nice.
or the image or whatever.
Sick.
Yeah, I think there's a few ways you can use it, because like if all of your clients are online businesses, then you can really just have like a bucket of people that it follows. Because I mean, you know this best, like you can cross-pollinate shit over.
Yep.
So like, let's say you had like 50 different accounts that were all scanning like keywords and key accounts. Like it might be like agency, money, Iman Gadzi. And then it's just consistently ideating. And you can just go to those ideas. Hey, I have a client in this market, script it for this. In this market, script it for this. In this market, script it for this.
You'd almost go and say, hey, you'd go look through the ideas, be like, hey, I want you to go and like create a draft for XYZ person.
Yeah. I think that would be the easiest way to do it, instead of having to do the setup every single time you
Yep.
sign a client, you know?
That makes sense.
And then the iteration, this was the biggest part that was missing for us. So we have it connected to Hyros. It can go into Hyros and it can see a bit harder with Instagram. But with like YouTube as an example, it's easier to attribute. Instagram's way harder.
Yep.
So you got to look at the unquantifiable metrics that don't really drive revenue, like
Yep.
engagement, followers, likes, but even still, they're not really great metrics to look at from a conversion standpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
If I can add on this, what you could do, like if you use like a DM comment strategy, like for example, you could add based on specific content, you can add a tag in ManyChat, and you could also trigger like a webhook whenever someone has commented on that post. And then you could create some sort of dashboard or reporting tool that would say, okay, this got you this amount of comments. And then you could connect that, for example, to go high level. Okay, these people who commented, 3 converted. And then what we have seen is like, you can have a piece of content that has huge amount of comments, huge amount of views, but then no one converts, compared to a piece of content that has like 10 comments, but 5 of those comments actually converted.
So you basically can see conversion-based stuff, which is obviously
Yeah.
goes deep into like sort of the ops or like sales side of things.
Yeah. So I think like that would be a very low hanging fruit, ideation, scripting, and iteration agent. So on the marketing side, mainly just organic. That's really all you'd need, to be honest. Like you would have one agent that ideates, scripts, iterates. Besides that, of course, there's additional things you could do. You could have it, again, like looking at specific people and develop it to look at like Jeremy Haynes content as an example and model their scripting style or model your talking style and continue to develop it. But on the organic side, this is really all we have. And then you've got the tracking and data management side too.
Yep.
And which I want to show you this after actually, because we built something pretty cool with this. So on the marketing side, it is all just organic. There's literally nothing else on that piece.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes
So it
sense.
would just be making that process more efficient then. It's nowhere near where it could be or should be, where you can go, hey, I'm not going to have a video editor anymore. It's not worth it.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the point, right? I think the point is in making people that you have within your company more efficient.
Exactly.
So that's where I see it, especially on the ideation side. I think scripting, more difficult, but especially on the ideation side, I think there's definitely like value in it.
I completely agree. So moving into the sales division of the business. So you have no sales reps because it's all organic.
Yep.
So it's very, very easy sales process, which is awesome. So like really, I don't even think you'd need anything on the sales
I think
front.
there's definitely like, to me, when I think of sales, I always think of like client sales. So I think there's definitely like value in it. Like I can just tell you what we've seen so far that's interesting, but it's basically like, because we always have different clients, right? It's tough to go and like keep that all in mind.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, how can I go and essentially like have almost one report that gets sent to me every single day in terms of, hey, based on a framework that I believe in, here's team performance of every single client.
Yeah.
Here's how many deals were missed. Here's which rep is like stinking the most and like what needs to be addressed. Because again, if I can read that, it takes me like 15 minutes and I go, hey, this, that, and the other, we need to attack X, Y, and Z problem.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point actually, because it wouldn't be for you, but because you take rev share in the clients, you need to make sure their sales team isn't dropping the ball and it's congruent with what the DM says.
Or if on a weekly basis, right, I get a report of like, hey, how many calls were scheduled, how many calls were taken, which was the top worst rep, almost like a one-pager that I can read. And when I go into the meeting, I'm like, hey guys, on the sales side, what are we doing? Why are we struggling with this thing? Or I get the insights of like a lot of people don't buy because of, let's say right now that as we're recording is like the gas prices, they're scaring them. Cost of living. Now I know for my content team, we can go and make iterations around that. So on that front, I think there's definitely a lot of potential that I might just not know.
Yeah, we have one internally. Obviously, we don't manage sales teams for clients, but we know other people that do that work with us. What we have right now is we have like an AI support, sales AI, that basically sales reps and setters can communicate with it. So what they can do is like, hey, I saw on the other day, we had a client come in who ran like a huge company, a telemedicine pharmacy, and he was interested in our AI offer and he sent us an NDA, so we wouldn't share any private information. So on the sales call, after they got the contract, the closer just threw it in and said, hey, can you review over this and send an email over to the client or the prospect, just letting them know that everything's all good and if there's any red flags, tell them to revise them. So, little things that, again, increase revenue per head. If we look at like a CSM, a sales rep, we want ideally 8 hours a day, as much time as possible being focused on where the money is, which for a closer is setting appointments and closing appointments. That's quite literally it. Taking demos, generating demos. Anything like end of day reports, sending recaps, doing even follow-ups, pretty high leverage, but if we can automate follow-ups, contracts, reporting, like if we can remove all of these things, it allows them to allocate more time to focusing on the money, which in turn makes them more efficient. So like little things like this you can absolutely do. Like we have one right now that, again, sends recaps of every call, gives them feedback on where they can improve. One thing I set a note on today that I think would be really beneficial, same with like content as well, feeding back to the marketing side, is it does a report weekly of every call that took place in the sales department and says, here are the common patterns of what people are saying. Here's the most common questions, objections, expectations. And then say you cross-pollinate that over to the ideation agent that made content around those things, sales assets, Instagram posts.
That makes complete sense.
And then just adding on to this is also like if you have multiple calls in a close, like let's say it's a 2-call close or a 3-call close, the closer can also just ask, okay, what did we discuss about in the last call? How should I open this following call that's going to happen? What should I touch on in that call to have a higher chance of closing them?
Do you reckon it's possible that, let's say, for example, on a client base, you basically have like their call transcript, they come into Slack, right? Sales manager bot goes in, reviews it. If a deal was butchered where it's like, yo, this was like a layup, you should have closed it. Is it possible to basically go and loop in like sales helper bot to essentially go and say, hey, can you please draft the follow-up sequence and then tag, like, for example, the setter or whatever, because we do a lot through DM setting, tag the setter of like, hey, go back into the DMs and tell this to the prospect. So it's like, I think those would be the type of things that are like very interesting, but obviously you're generating a fuck ton of revenue as a result out of that. Yeah,
it's all about like what are the micro improvements that we can make. The main thing we've seen with closers is how do we get rid of that 10% or 20% of their time that's focused on bullshit. No closer likes admin. No closer like end of days, recaps, follow-ups. None of them like it. They just want to be on calls, rip stimulants and collect the money. Do you know what I mean? So like we haven't done that, but that's a very good idea. Of like, it looks at the transcript. If they didn't close, if the source was Instagram, can we then draft up a message that the setter can send to the prospect that makes it fully congruent?
Exactly.
Like a personalized follow-up.
Or as an example, if we see that someone's really on the fence, can you have an agent that essentially, that's one thing we were considering, is like if you draft it, like somebody wants a follow-up call, that basically takes a transcript, formulates almost like a plan, and then basically sends it to like, hey Jen, creates a video and from the client and sends it. So it's like, hey, Alessandro, I know you just had a call with Cam about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You know, I think based on what he said, I think this, that, and the other would be a really great path for you. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask him in here and I'll get back to you. Which like, it's small things like that where I think for us, that will be beneficial. Right now, I kind of do that stuff from an ideation perspective, right? But realistically, if you have someone that does it more automated, that'd obviously be fucking helpful.
Yeah, and it's all like micro improvements with the sales agent. Like one other thing we want to test for our show rates is imagine if we had a custom sequence that went out before the call that was specific to that prospect. Maybe it gives us like a few percentile boost on the show rate, but if you had a custom sequence that was specific to you, nobody's doing that right now. Not even close. Everything's fully automated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like the AI return on investment audit that we send out to the people who fill in the form. But imagine if we could also add on where, let's say the call is in 7 days and within those 7 days, there's a news within those 7 days that changes something. Like, for example, a company that's working in the same industry that automated a specific thing. And then we can add that like in the message to get them on the call. Like, oh, by the way, this person did this. Like, I don't like personalize the messages based on what in real time.
Yeah. And I think for you, it might be if you know that these clients do generate a significant amount of revenue if they go on the done for you, it would be worth having like what we have right now is we have a COO agent who oversees the rest of the agents in the org chart. But for you specifically, you might have like the sales arm. And then for each client, you have these agents that just like oversee all the Slack channels, the stats.
Yeah.
And they're the ones like it is so easy to literally just give it, let's say they all use Fathom. You give it a Fathom API for each client.
Yeah.
You give it a GHL API or whatever CRM they use.
Yeah.
You give it a Slack app where it can scan the key channels like new clients, payment notifications, contracts. And then maybe, this is what we have for each department, you then have a channel called AI support for each client. And not to mention as well, this makes you so sticky. Like how can they replace you if you have an AI that's trained on all their data that nobody in that space is doing, number one. They're gonna be like, how did this guy do this as well?
Then basically COO bot would report to me on like what's happening.
Exactly, so this is the one that you would communicate with.
Yep.
You wouldn't communicate with these. These would be individual agents, their own identity, own memory, own user. The COO would be able to talk to these agents and let's say once a week you want a report breaking down agent 1, agent 2, agent 3. This is like client 1, client 2, client 3. Here's the stats. Here's the show rate. Here's what objections we're receiving from each client. And it's all just connected to a few key APIs that you get in the onboarding process.
Yep, makes complete sense.
Yeah, I think like that would be insane. Because, you know, even if you could make every individual sales team 10% more efficient, that's going to drastically increase retention, number one, because it's sticky. Because the founders are going to use this and be like, this is fucking sick. How did you build this? Not to mention as well, it's just going to make your life easier if you have the report.
Definitely.
Yeah, cool. And again, like that's more under the bucket of fulfillment. Like your sales process is great because it's all organic. You know what I mean? It's like so the dream. Yeah, it's the dream. I know. I tell my sales team all the time, if you get on the call with someone organic, you're just like a cashier.
Yeah.
You're just collecting the money. So I think the biggest thing for you on the AI side is going to be the fulfillment piece, to be honest.
Definitely.
We've got a very similar model in terms of we have the done for you and the do it yourself side, especially now with having the AI offer and then having the do it yourself licensing offer as well.
Facts.
This is a complete side note, but on the CSM side of this, which is unrelated to AI, do you have an upsell that you propose to the clients that come in on the initial do it yourself offer?
Nope.
Yeah, because if you did, having a CSM would be super relevant.
Yeah.
100%. We only recently, we implemented account managers, but it did drastically increase renewal rate, upsell rate, everything, because what we have is we have the 5K front end, we have the 20K, and our goal is everyone 5K, we roll into the 20K, and we roll in this price into this one. So it's like, hey, this all goes in. This one is like all the resources they need to go from 0 to 10. This one is 10 to 100. And then we have different cross sells. So we have the main grow and exit upsell, which is 50K for a year.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to like they can't make this gap, to be frank with you. So then we have like a cross sell of like the fast track where we do recruitment. So usually when they're between this 10 to 100 range, biggest constraint is talent acquisition. They need a CSM, they need a sales rep, they need a media buyer. So great, you get 2 recruitments, we'll train those people and we'll come in and we'll build out like the onboarding SOPs or whatever it may be. It's a little bit custom. And that can be like 15 to 20K. So if you had something like that, and you have like a spider web of offers, a CSM would make so much sense in this piece of the puzzle.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah, because like we found that without CSMs, obviously people are just going to say, yeah, I don't really need it anymore. It's not that relevant. But now it's like I've been in Cole Gordon's program and I know they do it really well. We have someone in our program, his name's Temple. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I know Temple, yeah. He was my account manager, to be fair.
He's a beast.
Legend.
He upsold me.
Yeah.
And I remember exactly what he did and we're doing the same thing, which is we build out a custom roadmap, step 1, step 2, step 3, deliverable 1, 2, and 3. It's going to be this price, this time frame, whether it's it's a renewal of just more of what they already got, or it's an upsell.
Yeah, makes complete sense.
Yeah. So with the account managers that you have on the done for you side, actually, you know what? Let's keep on the do it yourself side first, because this one's going to be a lot easier. With the content that you have, it's housed in what platform?
School right now, probably
Yeah.
moving over to a different platform, but let's use School as an example right now.
Okay. Do you have a content finder? Kind of like what Jeremy has?
No, but that was kind of the
Yeah.
thing. So like right now, the things that I'm doing manually that I think shouldn't be done manually is like I usually like to check in with clients. So like just because we could solve, right, doesn't mean I just wait for them
Yeah.
to ask questions. I'd rather go and check in. So I do all the check-ins, which is obviously when you like travel or like you have a shit ton going on, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Second thing is I think just small leverage stuff when they ask like, hey, where can I find this or what about that, right? Sort of the content finder stuff.
Yeah.
And then just more as well, like small things where they can, for example, again, the content finder thing's one thing, but more importantly as well, just small like fulfillment helps where they're like, hey, I need feedback on X, Y, and Z. I want to call it an AI advisor over time, but I think those are sort of the things that I want to go to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Cam's AI.
That was a game changer for us. Like, and I would like to say I think we've got the best one in the market, to be honest, because ours can create assets and stuff as well.
I will go and say that's the one thing I have heard from Kiri.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, this is like next level.
Yeah.
So fair play.
We've got some really cool shit there.
Talk to me about those stuff.
So, like, first piece to recap on the do-it-yourself. This is completely adjacent to AI, but if you got clear on like what are those next logical steps, you
Yeah.
had a CSM, you're upselling, the LTV would go up exponentially. For the AI clone and tools, so what we have is we have an internal and an external AI. So the external AI is people can ask it questions, it can create assets, it's trained on every SOP in the program.
Yep.
It's basically just a clone of me. It creates digital leverage.
Yep.
And it can also find resources relevant to what they need as well. So it saves our CSM's time. Again, it's all about increasing revenue per head, efficiency per individual CSM, which as a result increases margin. Then we've got the internal one, which CSMs can use for like difficult client situations like, hey, I'm about to get on a call with a client who's due for renewal. Can you put together a game plan document based on all the calls we've had over the last 30 days that you know is probable to get them to renew? Here's what we're going to work on over the next 90 days as an
So
example.
this is for me is like an interesting question, right? I think this is where like maybe it's like a limiting belief.
Yeah.
But I'm like in my head when I think about putting stuff like this together, I'm like this sounds like so much tech work, but also it sounds like if I don't even 100% know how to go and like properly approach it, right?
Yeah.
How is the AI gonna know? Because then it feels like you need to go and learn all this stuff so you can then prompt the AI to like do stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
It's a whole science. Like when we built Cam's AI, we built it from scratch. Obviously, the software is out there that you can just, upload some documents, but we built it from scratch. So it's basically called a hybrid RAG database system. And multiple key parts of it is first, the data that you train the AI on. Like you have to be very clear on what is this document about, when should it be used, what is the category of the document, and then essentially the prompt that the main AI uses. And then we also have like a secret tool which re-ranks the data that it fetches from the database. So normally all of these other tools that are out there, what happens is the AI picks the data out of the database and says, here, use this, figure out what to do with it. But we have a re-ranking tool. So it re-ranks the data that it fetches based on what the person asked.
Nice.
That's how...
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a whole science, actually.
So you'd actually recommend having both an internal and an external?
I would. So, like, for example, we have a webinar company that we work with as well. And what I recommended for them is because they have CSMs and because value is all perception. Like for them, for example, when a client comes in, they have a coaching program, they have a video that is a templatized webinar script that they can just plug specific things into. And I was like, well, you could have an external AI that does this, that they can use. Or you could internally, whenever a client comes in, just mold that script for that client and show them it on the onboarding call because perception is value. Something done for them is far more valuable than something they have to do themselves. So it all depends. Like if it's a done for you client, I would say internal specifically.
Makes
if
complete
it's
sense.
coaching clients and you don't have CSMs, the external works as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it's all perception, right? Like we know for a fact that when our CSMs respond to something, they're more probable to take that action and listen to the advice than if an AI does. It's just, it is what it is. I'm the exact same, because there is a factor of like, do I trust this? Do I not? And as well, like if and when you build this out, the key is just making sure that you keep an eye on it for the at least first few weeks and really on an ongoing basis. Yeah. I would like to say like ours is in a spot where like it genuinely is, it's really good.
It's good.
Like it is really good. There's some things like it can't find specific resources sometimes and we have to fix it, but
Just on a point on this, and what is actually the most valuable thing from from implementing this in like your business would be the data that you get from it. So the different questions that your clients
this
are
is so
asking
key.
it, the different questions that internally people ask it. Why? Because then you can make, like, let's say you can see, okay, last month I had 20 people who asked the same question. Let's make an SOP. Let's bring it up on a call.
Yeah.
Same thing for the clients. You can also use that for your content.
It's actually good. You almost use it like one to answer questions, but two to really fetch where inequalities are.
Yeah, it's like there's so many benefits to
And
this.
then obviously you can use the internal to then build out the...
Yeah.
And then you can monetize it.
This is what we're planning on doing.
We spoke with someone and they were like, okay, well, why don't we just charge our current clients to use this? So, yeah.
I mean, it's what Jeremy's doing now.
That's what Jeremy's doing now, exactly. So it's like it's a two-way benefit. You've got like the benefit of it creates digital leverage for you. It saves you time and your CSM's time. And it also gives you data that you can accumulate to make content, to make SOPs, to find holes in the current content curriculum that you have in place in the coaching program. So it's a win-win. But yeah, like besides that, of course, there's going to be small other things like we actually have, and this is something that we are meaning to build out. We haven't done it yet. With the external, we actually want to have the bots trained on each client, each call. So it's custom to them, which again goes back to this, where the biggest challenge with coaching is it's not sticky.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. But the good thing is if you can create these mini moats, like you gave them a sales AI, what if you gave them like an individual cloned AI agent for them that's trained on every call you've taken, every constraint they've ever had, and they only get it if they continue to renew? Makes it so much stickier that way.
It's almost like you have the core agent, which would be COO agent, right?
Yeah.
And basically like you almost have like the COO basically like builds an account manager agent for every new client you jump on. So they basically like that person kind of jumps in and goes, hey, by the way, have you done X, Y, and Z? Hey, I know we spoke about this, that, and the other. Like, let's get this done.
Yeah.
Obviously, that would be fairly interesting.
Yeah, exactly. On the do-it-yourself side, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, every like coaching program has the 3 C's: course, content, community.
Yep.
And really, they're all fairly straightforward in terms of delivery. But these are things that like not many coaching programs have in place that make it better.
Yep.
I do think as well, like account managers help tremendously. Genuinely, like you can get somebody good for really like $4 to $6 grand a month, just depending on how knowledgeable you want them to be.
Yeah.
Like one of our CSMs costs us like $3-4 grand a month, and he's from Colombia and he's great. He doesn't need to be an agency wizard though, because he serves our lower level 0 to 10 clients. But we also have an account manager that usually gets paid like 6 to 7, that's far more proficient, that has ran an agency, that obviously costs us more, that makes more in commission.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. So like for us, we went down the route of we wanted a happy medium. If we wanted to hire a 200K a month agency, it wouldn't work. Do you know what I mean? If you wanted to hire like someone doing 500K a month on Instagram organic, it would be impossible.
Tough.
You'd have to pay them so much. But if you can find someone who's good at leveraging the like things like this, you don't need somebody
who knows how to think about what to use.
Yes, exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So the final piece here would be on the done for you side.
Yeah, I think this is where we have the big spenders.
Yeah, of course, you've got a lot of overhead here, which makes sense because it's service-based. So with the account managers, if we pull this down here, so just to recap, you've got on the done for you side, you've got 4 or 5 account managers, so 5 AMs, and how many clients do they usually handle each?
Anywhere between 2 to 4.
Okay, 2 to 4 clients, so it's quite heavy in terms of per client.
Exactly.
Do you know what the average revenue per account manager is? Or does it fluctuate so heavily?
Fluctuates. We have one guy that basically handles like a third of the revenue, right? Some of them a bit less. And also like if you have 4 clients that have been with us for like a year, those are the ones that are like fairly ramped. Whereas if you just have 2 new ones, it's going to be pretty light.
Yeah, because we've done for you. This is what we've done with our agency. We break it down into 2 different buckets. You've got departments and then you've got roles. Because these are like the 2 different, it's like looking at a Rubik's Cube from a different angle kind of thing. We've got the departments, the sales, the marketing, the fulfillment. But this business specifically, mainly fulfillment, you go even more micro, onboarding, upsell, retention, like what key pieces of the puzzle are involved. And then you've got the roles, which we already spoke about. So with the account managers as an example, you're not going to get rid of them. That's just not going to happen. Nope. We don't plan on doing that either. But if you could make them 40, 50% more efficient, you increase their client load, you increase the margin on the business exponentially. So what does their day-to-day look like?
Yeah, good question. Like I think their day-to-day is like really like heavy on like creative stuff. So that might be like stuff like looking, like they obviously look at like content, right? Like some of it is like really odd. Because you just scroll. So like for example, we have a video right now that's getting like 100,000 likes and like 25,000 leads for a client. Like we found that looking at like some random yoga chick. I don't know who was watching it and like why they were watching a yoga chick, but it's just some random yoga chick that was like what I expected from like the Lotus post versus what actually happened. We looked at it like, this is a banger content. It's like, this is not something that you think about randomly, right? So we want them to do that. Then obviously they just write in terms of they actually execute.
So they're actually copywriters at the same time.
Yes. So that's what they mainly do. So that's what we call account managers. They just actually execute.
Right.
Then they obviously work with my business partner and like he reviews everything and he just like manually gives some feedback and then they kind of go back and forth. Then they go and like format like carousels or like, select like slides out. The slides go and like essentially like get edited by the video editor.
Yep.
And then from there, what they do is they go and review the data. They then because obviously we're on shout outs for them. They basically go and like check out like, hey, on shout outs, what is and isn't working, make the tweaks onto there, maybe do like some of the formatting stuff. Then they go and create the stories. And then from there, they go post and do their thing.
Right. So it's not as much client facing as a typical account manager.
No.
How frequently do they meet with the clients and communicate?
We actually do all the meetings. So it's me and my business partner talk to the client on Monday.
Yeah.
They just, during the week, they say, hey, I need feedback on this piece of content. I need data on that. That is more like the thing. But even with that, we in our heads, we're like, well, probably you could just have it inside of like Notion, for example, where we do task management. You can just go and say, send for review, and then some AI bot do
That's
that.
what I'm thinking. Because like for us, for example, what we found is our CSMs, we did like a time audit with them. 70% was focused on calls with clients. We call them the 4 R's. For you, it's a bit different. You've got retain, resell, refer, review. The 4 money-making activities that CSMs or account managers can do. The other 30% was allocated towards things that contributed nowhere near to the money or their zone of genius. So that might be something that you and your business partner do as well. Sending call summaries as an example. Assigning tasks based on those calls. You know, you even said like the ideation piece, which we discussed earlier, could potentially be something that could be leaned down to a degree if you had an agent they could speak with. And then overall, like scripting, I know your team does things at a way higher level than what an agent could do. But that being said, if it could get them 70% of the way there,
Definitely.
70% is better than 0%.
That's my thinking of like
Yeah.
how we can get to the point where essentially like we can get more ideas that are high quality, right? And then also get the first draft done faster, because I think the first draft, it can be kind of marginalized. But then obviously the 20%, like, or the 30% that drive 80% of the performance. So you spend more time on that, which obviously can help you increase the output per se.
Exactly. Yeah. And then of course you've got like, again, call summaries. That's something that very easily, what we have internally is we have a client success agent. That's the internal agent that my team can tag and go, hey, we need an asset for this client. We need an idea for this client. And what it does is it runs a cron task, which is a recurring task, and scans our grain. Grain, Fathom, the same thing. Every time a call takes place, sends the summary internal to our project management to assign the tasks to the relevant people, and external sends a summary to the client. Here's what you do, here's what we do. If it's done for you, it's predominantly here's what we're going to do. And then of course it can handle the reporting piece as well. If you have one source of truth per client that maybe someone manually goes in and cleans up each week, instead of them messing around sending the reports, can we just have an agent that scans it once a week and sends it?
Yep.
And that feeds into the task piece. Ideation, we discussed that. Scripting, we've discussed that as well. It's just training it on your frameworks.
I think one place where we definitely like waste a lot of time is, I would say, just like data collection, data validation, and then obviously like reporting / that creation. Like I think that's really one area where I'm like, we could definitely be more efficient, you know?
And I think that's one of the hardest ones to do because there's so much, it depends on the complexity of the business. Like for us, it's been very difficult to do internally for the coaching because call funnel, webinars, low ticket to high ticket, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, which YouTube video, was it the bio? For the agency, so easy. It's just call funnel ads.
Now, let me ask you this. So right now, one of our big initiatives essentially do like client sales verification. So essentially but it's a recurring process where it's like, for example, hey, we have this many call bookings, but setters report 10. First step, you go inside of tool 1, you check this. If it's validated, great. If not, do this. It's a very like repetitive process. Do you think that you can have a sales validation agent that basically like goes and like, you know, does those tasks if given the SOPs on a consistent basis?
So like audits and grades the call?
No. Like basically goes and like, for example, we have setters that book calls, right?
Yeah.
The setters, but sometimes they send manually booked calls. So like it doesn't get caught by the UTM, but then it's tracked inside of like ManyChat, they flag it.
Yeah.
Or they book directly just manually and they just create it inside of the CRM. So we have like this multi-step process to catch one, how many calls were booked from our efforts, and then 2, what were the call updates?
Yeah.
And obviously right now we rely heavily on setters and we do a bunch of other shit. So my question is, can you almost build an agent that does a lot of the validation of it? Because right now one of our team members, he spends like half his day on like just, it's great, right? Because this month alone, we've caught like 400K in misattributed sales. But obviously in an ideal scenario, we can do that more automated where he just does the final checking.
Yeah. What we saw is it can get you there to a degree. It's not going to do everything though. So like if we had a VA like you who was spending like half their day validating data, maybe it's an hour or 2 a day now. Because like for us, for example, a prime example would be if we have 3 closers on our sales team and we know that like half of the people that they got on the phone with, they don't have a source or we don't know the status and for some reason the call recording bugged out or the end of day report said something different here, then it needs like multi-layer checking. So like very simple example for this is like number of leads. Well, you could look at Meta, you can look at high rows, you can look at Typeform. So what we have it do is we have it cross-check all of them. So like if we check something, let's say we see Typeform has 7 leads, GHL has 9 leads, Meta has 8 leads, high rows has 10 leads. It will check all of them and it will just flag us and say, hey, these are all different. And we can basically just say which one is the source of truth. And I can even just go, well, send me all the leads. And what we've done is we've trained it on what a real lead looks like and a fake lead looks like.
Yeah.
So, if they see like test, if they see an Indian phone number, like anything
they
like
see
that.
the word funnel hack.
Yeah, they see any of that, then it can make a conclusion on which one is probable. And in a scenario like this, we always tell it to go for the lowest number because we'd rather under project than over project as an example. But with shit like this, it sucks. Like this is my least favorite thing to do as a business owner. I'm sure it might be up there for you as well. Checking data. This is fucking different to this source. It's a mess.
I just go nuts when like the data changes.
Yep.
Like, oh, you reported 260. Like, why are we at like 160 all of a sudden? Like, what the fuck we doing?
Yeah. So to recap here with the account managers, like, again, I think that 30% could essentially be made more efficient, which will allow them to allocate more time to this, which might take them from managing 2 to 4 clients to 4 to 6, as an example.
So you reckon more that basically instead of saying, hey, you save by being able to replace people, I can go and say, let's say the average account manager manages, let's say roughly like 40 to 60K.
Yep.
You basically think that all of a sudden they can go and like manage 100K in things. Obviously, if we didn't get 6 account managers, all of a sudden we could probably get roughly to about 600K.
Yeah. Like this is what we've been doing over the last few months in our agency. For us, we're a little bit different. Everything's SOP'd. It's each CSM can manage 40 clients. That's usually the cap. But a lot of what was taking up their time was text communication, reporting, summaries, making sure the numbers are right, all this bullshit that would actually take like 30 to 40% of their time. So what we did, which because we're in a market where like med spas, very unsophisticated, don't really know what's going on, we had an AI bot in all of their channels and we gave them a real face, a real name. Their name is Steph. And we introduced them as, hey, this is the CSM's assistant. And they're going to be sending reports, helping them. So what they do is we have 2 different workspaces in Slack. One is internal, one is external. Anytime a big red flag pops up in Slack with fulfillment, with results, it immediately notifies the assigned CSM and it will respond to the client and be like, hey, I've let Theodora know on this right now. She's going to be in touch with you within the next hour or so. So it just saves them
It's smart.
the time.
Yeah. It basically just tells them what needs to be done.
Yeah. And like, little things like sending Fathom summaries and assigning tasks. Like sometimes we might be making like 5 different changes for a client on a call and they have to assign one thing to a media buyer, one thing to a tech person, one thing to another CSM if there's a change in transition from CSM to CSM, little things like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So to wrap this up as well, the other team members that you have, the account managers, which again, are nowhere near going to be removed, just more efficient. Media buyer, we don't think it's there yet. We don't. Again, it's going to be efficiency. So for us, for example, we work with a marketing company that helps us with running the front end. On the back end, in our agency, we have a media buyer per like 30 to 40 accounts because it's fully SOP'd. So what we found made them more efficient is, again, instead of believing that we can just get rid of them, which I don't believe it's there yet, we actually just use Manus because it's the easiest way.
Yep.
And we have one centralized fulfillment dashboard with every individual client campaign broken down by campaign, ad set, and ad. We can see CPL, we can see cost per book call, so on and so forth. We can see everything end to end. It analyzes this data and it basically just sends in a daily report of the red flag clients. We call them DEFCON 1 clients. So these are the clients that shit. These are the highest probability of churning. It goes through everything from, we break it down into leads, bookings, shows, and closes for us because we run a lead gen agency.
Yeah.
It finds the constraint. It tells us, here's what the number should be, here's what it actually is, and here's the levers that we need to pull to fix it. And it has API access to Facebook and it can see everything in this sheet.
Sweet.
So again, instead of it going in and actually making the changes, it will send in the recommendations. It does the grunt work of diagnosing the constraint and then the media buyer can take the action.
Sick.
Yeah, cool. And then besides that, if we look at the other team members, you've got the ops manager and the COO, which, I mean, these are key roles at scale. I'm sure there's probably things they do that could be automated.
Do you believe in this economy, especially with an agency where, like, for example, let's say COO or ops manager role, one of the two? Do you believe that both are necessary? Because to me, I like the way I think about it, either if you have a really good COO, you can have the COO replace the ops manager, or if a COO is more like sort of like almost like a project manager or someone that just pushes more automations in place, this. Can that be replaced? And then just basically like someone be, the ops guy is really good.
Yep.
Hey, you need to create this automation. Let me know when it's done.
That's the way that I see it. I think like these two are like, a COO is like an upgraded operations manager really. And they can usually do way more. Like this one isn't really going to play around with sales or marketing. This one might have their hand in many different hats because they're essentially doing everything that you would do as a founder. I don't believe you need both. I don't. Like, I think instead of having both, what you need is, let's say you were going down the ops manager route. Yes, there would be you here, and then the ops manager would be here, and then they would handle the team leads, and then, you know, it would continue to go down. If you've got a COO, the org chart would look a little bit more like this, because the ops manager is more implementing. The COO is more of a visionary and parallel to the ops manager. So you would have you here, and then you would have the COO. And instead of having an ops manager that implements, you might just have a tech specialist that can build things out. Like for us, we have a tech specialist. She's paid $2,000 a month. And on paper, could we get an ops manager that gets paid $8,000 a month to do that? Yes. But now the COO, anytime they have an idea, they need something implementing, they just send that thing, the brief, over to this person, and they're the executor.
Yep.
And it's significantly cheaper.
That makes sense.
Because like really the goal of this person is to make sure that everything is running smoothly and nothing breaks. And you know, if you're pushing heavy on the front end, they make sure the back end doesn't break, as an example.
Makes sense. So basically I can just replace one of the two.
Yeah, I don't think you need both. I really don't. And then yeah, like video editors, you need them. And then head of setter staff, absolutely need them as well, because it blends into your coaching program
but
too.
even there, you can probably like build some form of leverage where essentially like you probably get flagged if somebody's massively underreporting, or you could probably build some form of like setter review. So instead of him actively having to review DMs, you could probably have some form of like setter review tool, which obviously then bleeds back into the coaching as well.
What we've been doing in our agency, which has helped tremendously, is we made it a non-negotiable. I had a team meeting with everyone. I said, look, every single person here for the next 3 days needs to list out everything they do. You're going to have a timer on your phone, and every hour you're going to list out everything you did. So task 1, task 2, and everyone sends this big list. And then I can throw that into an LLM and just say, based on everything here, what can we delegate, eliminate, or automate? More importantly, automate. And funny enough, you'll find like most people have like 30%. Like there's absolutely shit that person does that can be automated.
Yeah.
If he's head of setters and he's manually reviewing a lot of calls, like the same with this webinar company that we just signed on as a client, him as the founder and his CSM being paid 10K a month, spent like, what was it, like 10 hours a week auditing webinars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And like, go on.
So, I mean, based on the framework that he uses, he can just train the AI to do that. And then what is really cool is it will send out like highlights of where, because he still needs to, you know,
tonality,
watch certain parts. So it'll give like, okay, at 20 minutes and 32 seconds, the person said this, the pitch is going to start at this time. So then instead of watching the 4-hour webinar, he can just go to the main parts.
And then obviously you could probably feed the statistics into the AI tool, and it kind of spits out as well what you should be doing better.
Yeah, and also what did he miss? What did the person not talk about in that webinar that didn't, because maybe that same person did another webinar where he talked about something specific, but in the new one it didn't, and maybe there was a decrease in sales. Okay, now we know why. And you can do the same thing with the sales calls as well.
Yeah, because if you really look at call reviews as an example in any domain, it's like there's what they say, which is framework based, and then there's how they say it. This AI can't handle right now. It's like if we look at the tonality, you don't need to look at the tonality throughout the entire call. It's first 30 seconds, how do they say it? Pitch, how do they say it? So on and so forth. So it can handle the what, which is framework based. And then with the how, it can just tell you where to review. So for this webinar company, as an example, we know we need to look at the start. We need to look just in the middle at random points to make sure the tonality maintains positive throughout. And then more importantly, the pitch and then the repitch. That's where he needs to review. So instead of looking at 4 hours, he might look at like 10 minutes.
Then he just kind of knows, or even if it's 30 minutes, it's like, you know exactly what needs to happen.
And like the client isn't going to know the difference, you know? And don't get me wrong, we're not just going to train it on the framework and be on their way. It's just a case of training it on the framework, training the agent on maybe feedback that you might have that differs from what the agent gives, and then you just continuously reiterate.
Even you can go and look at like, you can take call recordings previously and see what was different and whatnot.
And the AI can have memory of that specific client. So instead of, normally that person would have to review multiple different webinars from different clients, but you can have the AI that specifically just reviews for that client. So it can be much more personal review doing it that way.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And because there is like so much shit that you can automate in any business, we always like to grade it, because I fell into this trap when we first started doing this stuff internally. You try and automate everything at once, and when you do it all at once, it all breaks, it all gets half finished. It's the equivalent of like taking 20 planes off the runway into the sky and you never see any of them actually land. You have one one of them that goes through the sky and it actually lands. So we rank it on 2 buckets of money, like how much impact does this have quantifiably on time and money, and then ease. So for you specifically, I think the immediate one that is super easy to a degree is going to be the clone of you.
Yeah.
So that's the internal and external, because that has so many benefits. It helps your account managers be more efficient. It helps you be more efficient. It helps your clients because they're going to get better results and be more probable to stay as well, because they can use it in the coaching program. Number 2 would be the organic AI, just because it benefits you and it benefits your clients directly. So if we break it down, it scripts, it ideates, it iterates, and it does all 3 of those things for every client. Because again, this also benefits the account managers as well. And then the third one, which again is very easy, would be call reviews, which we just discussed, which again would in turn mean that your clients get more hand holding and audits.
Or they get more feedback on it.
They get more feedback, more touch points, better results. And then as well, it makes head of setters, right? Yeah, it makes him more efficient so he can focus on the overall connection that he has with all the setters, hiring more people, building SOPs, so on and so forth. And then the final piece, which we discussed up here, was the other shit that the account managers do, the reporting.
Like the admin tasks.
Yeah.
Probably even to a degree communication, to be fair.
Yes, yeah. So then you've obviously got the sales AI, which I think this one would be the biggest build out by far, but it would also have the biggest impact. Because again, if you had your COO agent and you had each client had their own sales AI, that is so sticky. And people would buy in just for that alone. Like imagine if you could add into the sales pitch, not only do we handle everything done for you, we build a custom trained AI agent that's going to know all your data that your sales team are going to be able to communicate with, and that connect the dots between the DM setter and the sales reps. And there's congruency that way.
Yeah,
You're like,
makes complete sense.
Yeah, because like I know a big challenge for me is like, how do we make it congruent? The sales reps never read the DMs. DM setters barely ever look at the sales calls. So how do we make sure that the left hand is talking to the right hand?
Yeah.
And how we can make sure that someone doesn't close, it goes back to the setter. Somebody doesn't book, it goes back to the closer. All of these things.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah. And then obviously like the other admin stuff that are micro marginal gains. So we spoke about reporting as an example. Having the COO agent is by far the most important agent that can see all of the data, give you the reports and tell you, here's how every client is performing.
Yeah.
Who's most probable to churn, to not renew, to not upsell, whatever it may be. And then overall, if you've got those team members that you know you might not need, these are on the non-AI side. Decide what this person does that this person doesn't do. Can you delegate, eliminate, automate? Can you remove that 8K a month from the payroll? And then head of setters, making more efficient. And I think that would be really everything.
Awesome.
Besides that, of course, making the account managers more efficient.
That makes complete sense.
Cool.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Appreciate having you on, man.
Appreciate you.